I see it still as an extension of being more of a compassionate eater. But now, of course, I understand the consequences when it comes to health and the environment, which is one of the reasons a lot of more people are giving a try. I see a lot more people coming in and trying because of the environmental consequences. So it doesn't matter. Pick one. It's three different reasons. You can have one, two, all three. It doesn't matter. The fact is, a lot more people are embracing plant-based nutrition.
Welcome to How We Change the World podcast. I'm your host, Deborah Rowan. Thank you so much for being here. We're joined today by a distinguished guest, Dr. Rosane Oliveira. Dr. Oliveira is a renowned geneticist and the founding director of the first UC Davis Integrative Medicine program. She's also the visionary founder, president, and CEO of the Plant-Based Life Foundation. Dr. Oliveira combines her 25 years of experience in genetics with a passion for nutrition and lifestyle medicine, offering unique insights into how we can all live healthier, longer, and more fulfilled lives, while at the same time being kinder to the planet and more gentle to the animals. And in my book, that's definitely a win-win-win. So whether you're a longtime advocate of plant-based living or just curious about how your lifestyle choices can improve your own health and longevity, this conversation promises to be enlightening. Now, before we begin, a quick reminder. If you find value in our discussion, please like, comment, and share this episode with your own community. Now, let's embark in this engaging conversation with Dr. Rosane Oliveira. Hello, Dr. Rosane Oliveira. How are you?
I'm doing great, Deborah. I'm so glad to be here.
It is an absolute honor to have you. This is one of those situations where I feel like I know you so well because I've been following you for so many years and you've never laid eyes on me. So we're at a disadvantage, I guess, that way. But really, you have been a huge influence in my life and in so many people's lives that I know that I've shared your work with. So that's why I feel this is not your normal setting. You know, this is a podcast about how we change the world, about people who are actually making a huge impact. That is exactly what you're doing on the lives and the health and the longevity of hundreds of thousands of people, really. So that must feel good. I haven't even told people what you do yet, but still that must feel good to have such strong purpose in your life.
Yes, it is something that I'm very happy about. You know, the old saying, if you do something that you love, you never have to work a day in your life. I've been very blessed. That's the way I felt my whole career, even before this past decade, 10, 15 years. I felt like, I know we're going to have an opportunity to discuss this in today's,
go ahead.
in this conversation we're having today. But as part of my trajectory, my professional trajectory, I was never really focused on what I'm going to do 30 years from now. I always knew that I know what I'm going to do for the next 5 years, for the next maybe 10 years. But when I look back, I can see how tortuous the road was. The route that gets me to where I am today. And that's it. But no matter what I was doing, I always felt this sense of purpose. And to me, I always thought that was the way everybody felt about what they did, but it's not true.
No,
so in that sense, I'm very grateful for the career I've had so far and for the experience and for how my work evolved to get me to where I am today.
And you have had a long and interesting sort of circuitous route. It's just that you've had so much education and you've had so much experience in such a short life already. So it's in fact, I just want to actually jump in and start talking about some of your credentials and what you've been studying and what you've been researching and how you share that with the world, which is in a lot of different ways. And that's also what kind of makes you pretty unique. But and you're from Brazil, which you can tell a little bit, but as you've been here a long time, so I think you've kind of got
20 years.
20 years. And do you go back and forth frequently?
I do. Well, everything changed after the pandemic.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, I used to go 3 or 4 times a year. A lot, yes.
That is
I
a
would
lot,
go twice a year with my husband, and I would go once or twice by myself. But since the pandemic, I've only been going maybe once a year, but then I stayed there for a longer period of time, sometimes 5 weeks, sometimes 2 months.
So
but
your family
it's changed.
is there.
Yeah, my entire family is there. Yeah.
Oh, that's hard to be away.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But I'm sure they're very proud of you. So you earned your master's and doctorate in Brazil, where you're from, and then you went on to get your postdoc, your postdoctoral training in. I hope I can say this properly: immunogenetics and functional genomics. Is that correct? At the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Maybe we don't want to go too far into it. Can you just explain what those words mean to the uninformed among us?
Yes. Well, when we talk about genetics is the study of single genes and how they are inherited or how they are transmitted or go from one generation to the other. The word genomics is when you're talking about the collection of genes and how the genes interact, how they communicate, how gene expression occurs, what are the things that turn genes on and off. So this is genomics when we study the collection of genes. And since we started having, well, it was in 2003 that we were supposed to have the big genome unveiling of the whole human genome. But since then, we have so many other animal genomes that have been sequenced. It's getting easier and easier for even now for people to have their whole genome sequenced. It's going to be easy. Yeah, we are going to get there to a point where everybody will know their own genome, will have their own sequence because it's getting cheaper and cheaper. Just like with the revolution it happened with computers, that it was very expensive to have a computer and computers were massive. They used to,
take up rooms, buildings.
Take a room. Yeah. And now the power of your iPhone, you have more power in your computing power in your iPhone they had in the computer that took those amazing guys to the moon back in the late 60s. Yes.
Yeah.
So the same revolution is happening in genetics now that we're going to go there. So the research I was hired to do was for us to understand how leukemia happens, because many cancers have, it's not that all the cancers are linked to genetics, but some cancers start through an infection disease. So there's some sort of infection disease, and the many times or almost always is a viral infection, and then pieces of the virus stay inside of us. And then they can be dormant or they can be reactivated. And then once that happens, then cancer starts. And I can give you an example. For example,
never heard this.
HPV, the human papilloma virus. We know that like women who are infected, who have HPV, they have higher risk of developing cervical cancer.
I see.
And we know like HIV patients have more chances, higher risk of developing cancer in the liver. So those things, and there are specific infection that happens in the blood, and it happens in both animals and humans, that increase the risk of developing one specific type of leukemia. And that's what I was studying at first, and how the host genetics, how our own genes play a role. It's not everybody that will develop, or not every animal that has been infected that will develop the disease, but some will. So that's what I was understanding, how this gene expression occurred. But then here's the kicker. That's how this new phase in my life started, is when we started looking into a specific part of what we call functional genomics, which is called nutritional genomics, how foods change gene expression. I was part of a specific project at Illinois where they were looking at cows, of all the animals. They say, what makes some cows develop metabolic disease and some cows don't develop metabolic disease. And it was all related to the amount of fat in the diet. And then we realized that it was like the animals or the cows that ate a high fat diet that have a specific gene that would develop metabolic diseases at a specific time in their life. So you needed both. You needed the gene component, but you also needed the diet component. And that's what we call diet gene interplay or connection. And that's what got me inspired into changing what I was doing and start focusing on human nutrition and understand how food, and more specifically a plant-based diet, can change our gene expression.
So this was back when you're working in your postdoc, right?
Yes.
And then when you decided, is it because of information that you learned? It sounds like it is in your research that said, oh my goodness, this is not just research now. This is affecting all of us humans, including you as the researcher. And that propelled you to start thinking about just not eating as much fat, or how did it literally start? Or just that you wanted to study more?
Yeah, well, I was already vegetarian. I became vegetarian at 15. So this was maybe 20 years later.
Okay.
And you know how it is when you're ready for the message appears. That's what I always tell people when people have been when they just started on a plant-based diet, they're so excited. They want everybody to change and, you have to change with me. You have to do this.
Yeah,
but
very aggressive.
You need to be ready for the message. I was ready for the message. And what happened is that someone recommended a whole bunch of books on health, exercise, and such. And then I came across a book that I say, I don't know if I'm going to read, but then I decided to read. And it's nice that we are having this conversation. I don't know when this particular episode is going to come out, but we are around Thanksgiving here in the US. And it was around Thanksgiving that I picked up this book and I said, you know what? I'm going to read this book over Thanksgiving holiday. And it was the China study.
Oh,
and I always wonder what would happen to my career or to my life if I picked up a different book. Because that was the book I needed to read, because my career was very similar to Colin Campbell's career. You know, he was trained to work with animals. His focus was on animal nutrition. And then he was, invited to go to Asia to do some work on figuring out why kids were developing certain kinds of cancers and such. And then the light bulb started to go in, and I was reading his book and understanding his path. First, I disliked the book a lot. Like I hated the message, not the book. And I said, I can't believe I'm already vegetarian. I don't need to be vegan, And I absolutely I love cheese. I loved ice cream. And I could never think about a life without those two types of food. So I was reading, and the reason I decided to read the book all the way to the end, and I say, you know what? I know he's a PhD. I know he knows about nutrition, but I also have a PhD and I have a similar path. I'm going to read the whole book, because at the end of the book, I'm going to have enough scientific information to counter all the points that he's making.
That is very funny. You were just being contrary. You're trying to arm yourself up to say why he was wrong. Before you keep going, can you just explain for people, because this audience will be completely unaware of people like Colin Campbell. I mean, not everyone, but just that, like, what was the message of the China study? I did read it, but I probably didn't read it with the same fortitude that you did, because you're a scientist and it hit you as a scientist. Like, you needed the facts, right?
Yeah. So the China study is a study that he was involved with. It was a study done between Cornell and Oxford University in the UK. And they were looking at the diet in China and looking at, it was a relationship. It was like a correlation type of study, which people don't like, because you cannot prove causation. You cannot say people are eating animal foods and they are developing cancer.
Right.
But but it's still, they wanted to see what is the diet in different parts of China and what is the incidence and the prevalence, or how many people have cancer and how many new cases of cancer happen, or in different types of cancer, what is going on. And they could see a relationship between animal food consumption and cancer.
Right.
And then he went back to the literature and he started looking at other groups in the world that maybe have seen such a correlation. And that's when he found a group in India that had done a study where, and it's mouse study. So when we talk about being plant-based for ethical reasons, or you are compassionate eater, people don't like it. So if that's your, I'm sorry, I'm just going to describe what it was. But then this was a mouse study, and what they were looking at is the amount of casein, which is the protein in the milk, and casein, whether or not the animal would develop cancer depending on the percentage of casein in the diet. And if it was below 5%, the animals wouldn't develop cancer. If it was above 20%, they would develop cancer. So Colin Campbell, I don't remember if the original study did it precisely like that, but I know that Colin Campbell tried to redo it, and that's the way he did it, 20%. And he said it was like a knob. If it was below 5%, the animals wouldn't develop cancer. If it was above 20%, they would. And he talks about all of that in the book. There's a chapter on what are the molecular mechanisms that can lead to cancer and such. So there was a lot of science in it. Some people feel that the China study is a little dry, but to me, it was the perfect message to me. And that was it. And then when I finished the book, I said, what am I going to do with the information? I'm going to ignore it, because I didn't have any health complaints or anything. And if you are healthy, it's very hard for you to say, why should I change?
Right. And why not wait till I'm 70 to change or something? Why don't I enjoy everything I want, and then when it gets closer to where I might get sick, then stop? So I've heard that too. But this was so your field, and so you really couldn't deny. And this was, what year did that book come out? I know I read it years ago.
The book was way
20
before.
Years.
I read the book in 2008,
and it had come out in the 90s or something, maybe.
I think so. Yeah. It was.
It's not new. Yeah.
It's not new. It's not new. He has written so many other books after, and probably so many other books after that. But it was the right message at the right time. I was seeing the power of food in my own research, and as I was reading the book. And the third effect that made me want to change right then and there is that my mother-in-law at the time was being treated for breast cancer. So here it is someone I love who's being treated for cancer, and nobody's telling her the importance of nutrition. In my own research, I know, at least I already knew that how much fat we had in the diet, how it could lead to metabolic dysfunction and metabolic disease. And then here comes this book, and I say, you know what? It's kind of obvious. Everything is connected. And then I wanted to learn more so I could help her. And at the time I said, it goes back to who I am as well. I'm not the kind of person that can tell someone to do something that I wouldn't be able to do myself. And I say,
refreshing.
So if I wanted to tell her and you say, you know what? I don't think you should be eating dairy, because in the book, the China study, even though they say animal foods should be avoided and such, the emphasis was on dairy. And that's the thing. And he focused on dairy, and my work was on dairy cows as well. So it was all related to dairy. And I say, how can I ask her to stop eating cheese and yogurt and ice cream when I am not going to do it myself? So my plan at the time is, I said, I'm going to do it for 6 months. I'm going to have her go through this with me, then I'll go back to eating, and she'll never know. And then by the
time it takes.
And I say, I'm going to do it because, I know I can do it for 6 months.
Right.
And I was absolutely sure I would go back. And I never did.
That's amazing. This story is amazing. And I think that breast cancer was one of the ones that he spoke about, because aren't there certain types of cancer? And of course, we'll talk about other illnesses that are related to diet as well. But
Yeah.
for this specific topic, there's breast cancer, but which is actually one of the stronger correlations, isn't it? Or am I just anecdotally saying that?
Breast, prostate, and colon cancer
are all pretty affected by, and you're talking about casein and the dairy products?
Yeah, dairy but animal foods in general,
products.
But also very specific when it comes to dairy. For different reasons, they do believe that the relationship between dairy and prostate cancer may not be casein, the protein, it may be something else. But it doesn't matter. All those three, the evidence is very strong, the relationship between animal foods and cancer.
So at that point, did you decide to go become, plant-based? Now, we used to only say vegan, and vegan has its own more of an animal concern.
Yes.
For animal welfare, just for people who don't really know the difference, maybe between vegan and plant-based, it's more the motivation, right? Why you would stop eating. But typically, anyone who does eat just plant-based, or only, not just, restricts their diet to plant-based, they know that it has an effect on animals, of course, on the lives of animals, and on their own health as well as on the environment. So there's many reasons why people choose to go plant-based. But your initial decision was health, like the human health. That was your...
My original decision was when I was 15. I did it for the animals. I became vegetarian, because of the animals. But here's an interesting thing. At the time, I thought that's all I could do to save animals' lives. There's this illusion. It's not illusion. It's just that we don't have the facts. We don't understand. It's as long as I'm working on dairy cows and I'm drinking milk, I'm not killing animals, because, I'm just squeezing and getting the milk.
And it's been going on for thousands of years, and it's always been fine.
And nobody is being killed. It's just the thing that we don't know is that cows are mammals just like we are. When is it that a woman produces milk? When she's pregnant and when she gives birth. So for a cow to continuously be producing milk, she needs to give birth every year, constantly. And guess what? We cannot guarantee that all of the births are going to be females. There will be males as well. And what happens to the males? They become the veal. Is that the name they say? On your plate. And so many other things that we don't. So if we're doing for the animals, then being vegetarian is not enough. And I didn't have the information. And mind you, I went to vet school and I saw what was happening, but I still was so enamored, so to speak, with the idea of eating dairy and making sure that dairy cows are healthy and they were producing milk and such. I spent a lot of time doing that without really making the connection. But then once I read the China study and I say, no, you know what? This is better. And I did it for somebody else. I didn't want to do any, it was not specific for my own health. So I see it still as an extension of being more of a compassionate eater. But now, of course, I understand the consequences when it comes to health and the environment, which is one of the reasons a lot of more people are giving a try. I see a lot more people coming in and trying because of the environmental consequences. So it doesn't matter. Pick one. It's 3 different reasons. You can have 1, 2, all 3. It doesn't matter. The fact is a lot more people are embracing plant-based nutrition. One thing else I want to say, you said the difference between using the word vegan and plant-based, right? When I started, I used to call myself vegan, and it was actually Colin Campbell who told me not to. I came to talk to him and I say, oh my gosh, your book was so nice to read your book. It was how it started. It was, and I told to his face, I say, I hated you and I hated your book at first, but with time, and that's the reason why I became vegan. And he looked at me and he said, Rosane, we don't use the word vegan because it has like a bad rep. And we've been saying
like two
plant-based.
radical people that are crazy and whatever. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I've
Yeah.
been called all kinds of names in my own
Yeah.
family.
Oh, yeah.
But he said that, and he said we say whole food plant-based, and I say okay, and then that's when I
Mm-hmm.
start changing to say whole
Mm-hmm.
food plant-based, and I like the change because it's a
I do
little
too.
softer, and
It
it
is.
helps more people be willing to give it a try instead of
Right.
getting a pushback. More people are willing to give it a try. So anything that helps more people try plant-based, I'm for it.
Well, obviously, because you have this challenge, which I'm currently, kind of redoing, although I'm already, I still say vegan, even though I like plant-based, but,
Yeah.
so but we'll move into that a little bit, because what you did in your career is you went to UC Davis, University of California, Davis, which is where you currently are, and you do a number of different things there, which I want you to talk about. But one of them in particular is that, and I don't know if you're still doing this, but I think you are working on the curriculum for medical doctors for bringing nutrition into their training, which has, I'm still surprised that is a novel or a unique situation, but they're still mostly not receiving nutritional guidance, correct?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
training so that they
training.
can guide their patients with nutrition.
Yes.
So is yours one of the first curriculums in the country? And is it just for UC Davis?
Yeah, no, we are not one of the first, which is wonderful news.
Yeah.
So let me just back up. So at
Yeah,
the
please.
time when I was transitioning to a whole food plant-based diet, meeting Colin Campbell and such, at the same time, my husband and I were being recruited to come to UC Davis. And then they wanted to, so what is it that you actually want to do and develop if you come to UC Davis? And I had an opportunity to discuss a few ideas. And I said, you know what? Can't we bring plant-based nutrition into the discussion? Can we do something? Can we start a program where plant-based nutrition is one of the pillars of health? And they were very open to it. I'm very grateful that they said, yes, let's do it. And that's how we started. So I was the founding member of the first integrative medicine program at UC Davis. And I did that for 10 years. And then for 10 years, even though we were doing a lot for patients, helping the physicians that are working, their students change their diet, transition to a more plant-based diet, it was very hard to do anything related to the curriculum. So I was the director or the founding director between 2011 and 2021. And then as I was leaving UC Davis as my paid job to start our new foundation, because that's what my time now I spend is on the Plant-Based Life Foundation. As I was getting ready to transition to this new role and new function, then I got a call and I said, you know what? We want to start incorporating preventive and lifestyle medicine topics into the 4-year curriculum. So every discipline, we want to have at least one class where we cover preventive medicine. And of course, diet is part of preventive and lifestyle medicine. And I say, count me in. So interesting enough, I'm not being paid to do that. I just do it because I love. And I say, okay, you are ready? So am I. Count me in. So I'm still part of that effort, because the first 2 years we were focusing on what we call pre-clerkship, which is the first 2 years in medical school, and now we're transitioning to start working with clerkship, which is years 3 and 4. How can we bring those topics into the curriculum? But it's amazing, and I'm very happy, and they're very open, and the students love it. They love to learn about nutrition. The ones that we had an opportunity to discuss, they all appreciate the knowledge and the information.
So what's such a mystery to me is, why is this even an issue? Why would it not always, from time immemorial? I mean, there's ancient wisdom. It's not a mystery that apples are better for you than a candy bar or something like that, and they're going to have different impacts on your health. So why has there never been nutrition included? It seems like such a slam dunk, if you will. Like, why? It's the most normal thing to do. And yet there's
Yes.
a resistance that has been going on for decades about it.
Yeah, I think it's human nature. I think the more conventional medicine evolved, the more drugs came out. They always thought that it doesn't matter, we can fix it. You know how it is? So why prevent something when I can fix it? I think it's how it came to be. And then conventional medicine became more specialized and there's nothing we can do sort of thing.
Yeah.
And now with the more molecular tools that we have, we can really understand what's happening inside of us. And then we know, because before we know, yes, we know that broccoli is better for us than French fries, but
Why?
humans will always try to get away with anything and say, can I still eat my French fries and be healthy if I take a pill? A lot of people will prefer that. So then I think it's for a long time it went that way, but it got to a point that now people are seeing that this is not sustainable, right? 70 or 90%, 75 to 90% of healthcare expenditure in this country is on chronic diseases that shouldn't exist or could be prevented. And I see that it's something that is happening across the world, but here in the US, a lot of medical schools are starting to focus more on what can be done. And I think that's why they started the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. All of these are new developments, but it's going to continue to grow. And I'm very excited about it.
Yes, it could be complete. It could completely change the trajectory of our health in this country.
Yes.
But it is you see more burger joints going up than you see vegan restaurants or plant-based. Still every time I see one open up, I'm like, another one. Like, how many do we need? So we're far from there, but at least it does seem to be an acceptance, and it's been a slow up and down thing, but it does feel like there's and you're right at the beginning of the shift, making it happen. I heard you speak on a podcast, I think it was, or you're giving a talk maybe about your sister. Do you mind talking about your twin sister and your health? Because I think that's so instructive for people who want to maybe write it off as not being effective.
Yeah, what happens is that a lot of people believe that your weight and your health, even your personality, everything is dictated by your genes and you cannot change anything. And, it's fixed and deal with that, because you hear a lot, type 2 diabetes runs in my family. Everybody in my family is overweight and so on and so forth. And people don't realize
we were taught that, right? We were taught to think that, if your father had cancer, then you should always have this test. So we are taught that. Yeah.
And the other thing is that most people don't realize is that what we also get from a family is their habits. We tend to like the foods our parents eat. We tend to do what our parents do. If your parents like sports, if they are very, outdoorsy, most likely you're going to be a little more outdoorsy if your parents are couch potatoes. So it's all of this brings, I said, why did I become a vegetarian at age 15? My mother said, you know what? I don't think we should be eating animals. And my sister and I said, okay, we did it. Sometimes it works the other way, because then 20 years later, then I went back and my mom and my sister became 100% whole food plant-based because of me. But that's how it starts. And then with my sister and I, what happened was that when we were about 22, 23, it was the first time I had an opportunity to go outside of Brazil to work. And I went to Germany to spend a semester, spend a few months there. It didn't quite make a semester. But when I came back, that's when I noticed that my sister had put on some weight. And I saw that happen. And it happens to a lot of people. It's a little bit, it's 5 pounds a year. Then you lose 3. Then you gain those 3 and another 3.
Yeah.
And then you lose 5, then you gain the 5 and you put another 3. And then over 20 years, it may be, when you look, it's like 30, 40 pounds. And then I always looked at it and I said, okay, maybe this is happening because of food choices, but I'm a geneticist and I'm never really making the connection. How can I how can I bring her in and explain it's not genetics? Because if it was genetics, I would have the same weight as
And you're
she
identical
does.
twins, right?
Identical twins, yeah.
Yeah.
100% of genes, so it could not be
Right.
genetics. So then that's when I look back and I say, well, okay, let's look at our blood biomarkers. Let's see how we're doing in terms of cholesterol and insulin and such. And this is something that a lot of people don't know. People believe that you gain weight, and then once you gain weight, you become sick. Then that's when you start seeing all your numbers start shifting and such. But the reverse is what is true. First, we start having metabolic dysfunction, and then becoming overweight and obese is one of the consequences of this metabolic
Wow.
dysfunction. And the interesting thing with that is that once you start shifting your diet, this metabolic dysfunction, it resolves it so quickly. But what a lot of people don't know is that many times, even when they're still 30 pounds overweight, they are already metabolic healthy. But because they are not seeing the scale go down as fast as they want, many times they give up. And it was one of the things that I did with my sister. Over the years, we were just seeing, and I say, as soon as she started eating whole food plant-based, she started losing weight. And then her metabolic profile became identical to mine within 3 months. She still had
3 months.
3 months.
And how, and was she like
Identical.
30, 20 pounds more than you at that point,
Oh,
or something,
yes.
or more?
She still had another 25 or 30 pounds to lose. But metabolically speaking, she was as healthy as
That's
I was.
fascinating. That
And then,
really is.
and I wish people knew that, and I wish they
Yeah.
would focus on metabolic health first, because weight loss is going to happen. The thing is, like, it took her 10, 20 years to get to their weight. And
Yeah.
it happens to a lot of people, but most people want to lose weight in 3 months.
Fast. Well, that's also what
You
we've been
didn't.
taught and encouraged to do through ads and through marketing. And,
Yes. Well,
you know,
there are other diets. When I said my sister tried all kinds of diets, which is
yeah.
something that happens to many people as well. And many diets work a lot faster than whole food plant-based. And this is one thing that we see. We see sometimes our scientific article just published and it makes the news. Low fat, it's low carb. It's a lot better than low fat. Do this to lose weight. And in the short term, you lose weight faster if you go low carb first. No doubt.
Sure,
but that's not what you want. You want sustainable weight loss, and you want the weight loss that is going to continue to happen over the years. And you want a way to maintain the weight loss. And low carb is the worst possible way for that to happen.
And we're, you're talking about weight, but I think it's such an important point that you mentioned is that your metabolic health that's just like one of the factors, your longevity, the way that you feel, your energy, your brain. I don't know. You said, does it affect your personality as well, what we eat? Is that one of our, I just wonder.
It can affect the foods we eat, can make us more anxious, can make us depressed, or can make us feel happier. So because, a lot of the precursors to neurotransmitters in our brain that can affect our mood are produced in our gut. And it's our gut microbiota that is responsible, like 70% of immune response comes from what happens in our gut. And there's this interplay between the metabolites that our gut microbiota produce from the food we feed them that has consequences in our whole body, and that includes our brain as well. So everything is connected, and the more we understand how our microbiome works, the more insights we get into health, mental health, and what you said, vitality and longevity as well.
Yeah, I mean, because dementia has been very closely connected. It seems like in the last 5 to 10 years, I've heard more and more studies where the chances of dementia, Alzheimer's are caused by certain diets, or can be avoided possibly. Not, I don't think reversed, but at least avoided by eating certain diets.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is the brain is the only organ up until now that we don't know how to reverse. We don't know how to start producing new brain cells inside. So the liver will, a damaged liver can recover. We have new cells that are going to be produced. We're always producing new cells in the skin. We get new cells produced in our muscles. We get new fat cells produced, which nobody wants, but we do. It's very easy to produce new fat cells. Just put on some weight. But brains, we cannot. So that's the importance of prevention when it comes to protecting the brain. And that's why one of the things we teach is eating 4 foods every single day, because those 4 foods are the ones that have been shown to protect the brain the most. What happens with the brain as we age? We start accumulating things that we don't want, and brain start losing volume, start shrinking, and those things we don't want. Of course, exercise is excellent to combat this shrinkage that may happen with age, but food is very important. What are the 4 foods? Beans, greens, leafy green vegetables, the dark leafy green vegetables.
Your kale,
berries,
your spinach.
yes. Berries and seeds, but more specifically flax seeds and chia seeds for their omega-3 content. And also, most people can benefit from B12 supplementation, whether if you are 100% whole food plant-based, you must take a B12 supplement. For anybody over the age of 50, the recommendation is that they also take a B12 supplement, even if they are not 100% plant-based. And a DHA supplement is also very important, because DHA is one of the long-chain omega-3 fatty acids. And most people have what we call at least a relative deficiency. They have a lot more omega-6 than omega-3 in the body. So you always want to up the intake of omega-3. But DHA is important to preserve brain volume. And I know that a lot of people think about, oh, I'm going to take a fish supplement. Don't do it. You don't have to. Look for an algae-based DHA supplement. It's clean, and it's how the fish get their DHA. They start with the algae. Just get it's a plant-based source, and you get the DHA. So those things are important. Eating the 4 foods, taking a DHA supplement, and a B12 supplement, because those are important.
Well, yeah. In fact, I'll put a link to my friend Matt Tallman, who started as one of the founders of Complement.
Yes.
Lovecomplement.com, I think, is the website, but I'll put a link on there, because it is specifically, it's an excellent company, and their products are exactly formulated for what people who live on a plant-based only diet need. And so it's a kind of a no-brainer. I take them, been taking them for years. But I'm going to just ask you to back up a little bit and expand a little bit more, because, well, first of all, I wasn't aware that you had sort of switched to your organization. That's your full-time organization. So Plant-Based Life, right, is the name of it. So yes. I want to make sure that we leave enough time to talk a little bit more about what we even mean by plant-based, because some people have no idea even what that term is, and we've been using it the whole time, so we didn't define it. But since maybe you can do a little bit of a talk about your organization and what you're promoting and how, and then maybe exactly how that interrelates with plant-based eating.
Okay, so the name of the foundation of a nonprofit organization is Plant-Based Life Foundation, and what our mission is, so that we can educate people to transition to a healthier way of living, because plant-based is not a diet, it's a lifestyle, and it affects different areas of our lives. We like to focus on the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, which is what I teach in my classes for the medical students at UC Davis, or the School of Medicine. What are the 6 pillars? Healthy diet, which is what we call a plant-centered diet, because it's very hard for people to go from eating animal
100%.
foods all the way 100%. So we help folks do that gradually and on their own pace, on their own terms. That's what we want to do. We educated them. They can start adopting new positive health promoting habits in one of the 6 areas. So one is healthy eating. So it's a lot of focus on healthy eating. Then there's physical activity. There's stress management. There's avoiding substance, tobacco, alcohol, quality sleep, and healthy relationships. So these are the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. But all of them, anything that we want to change in our lives, depending on us being able to either replace a bad habit or start a new habit. And this is where a lot of people encounter difficulties because they think that developing or creating a new habit is easy like that. And if it was, anybody who has New Year's resolution would have lost 20 pounds. We have been just eating clean foods or plant-based and such. And habit change is something that is not easy. You have to understand what are the requirements, and it has a lot to do with mindset, what's happening between the 2 years, as we say. And a lot is related to managing emotions because our emotions drive our behaviors. We like to think that we are rational beings, that anything that we tell our rational brain we are going to do, but we are emotional beings. We respond to emotions and we make decisions based on emotions. Every single human being does it like that. So the main focus of the Plant-Based Life Foundation is to teach people the tools to be able to develop these new health promoting habits. And then we started 3 years ago. We have a main program. It's called Life Lab 360. That's where we teach people how to change habits first. Mindset, managing emotions, and then we teach them what are the key habits that can help you lead a happier, healthier, longer life.
I have to say, when I took your course, it used to be called Bite Sized, I think.
Yes.
And I was exposed to some of those teachings, and I don't find any longer, but you're learning a lot. You're learning about food and the chemistry of it, and there's a lot to learn to make these transitions. And I think what I made a mistake that maybe a lot of people make, and that is to think that I can willpower my way through things, and I didn't. I think, well, I can't learn everything, so I'm just going to learn about what foods to eat because I was already not eating. I was already plant-based or vegan. But I wanted to take your course because of the health aspects, because you don't really know, and there's so much to learn. And it is a re-education of how we've lived our lives. It's a lifestyle. It's not something you jump into quickly, and you do stress a lot about just take one new habit, even a year or a month or whatever,
Yes.
And I don't think that way. I want to jump in. I want to do it 100%. And then I'll fail, because and your explanation, which I'm sure, I don't know if it's okay to mention that you have a website, there's a video, I guess, on YouTube, which talks about how the mind works and how the emotion and the decision making are right in the same area, and memories and all these things. And those are my things, like something reminds me of my mom's apple crisp or my mom's comfort or my or my childhood or something nice. I have no control. There's no stopping it. So now all these years later, I'm looking at it going, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And there is a video on there, but it's also in your class. And I just would encourage people not to just think January 1st, this time I'm doing it. I'm going to be strong. I'm going to do this. We're doomed unless we fully understand how to change a habit and our emotional response to whatever the trigger is.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention is we tend to think that there's this misconception that a new habit you can create in 21 days. Actually, what science shows is the sweet spot is 66 days. Some may take less, others may take longer. So if you use the 66 days as a framework, then, and if you want to focus on one habit at a time, if you don't want to even overlap them, so the best that you can do is 6 new habits in a year. But if you want to start one every month and then overlap a few of them,
I see.
it would be between 6 and 12.
Yeah.
So you think it's a lot, but it's not a lot. And the other thing when it comes to eating, what people believe is one habit is more than one habit. When people tell me, I want to avoid sugar altogether, this is not one habit. This is many different habits. Because it's not just when is it that you eat sugar? I add sugar to my coffee. There's a specific there's specific conditions that bring you to have sugar in your coffee. It's a time of the day. There's some sort of
trigger
reward that you feel there. You have different things that come in that experience. There's the dessert that you eat when you go to a restaurant. There's the food, there's the craving that many people have around 8 or 9 p.m. There's a physiological reason for that. That's why a lot of people at 8 or 9 said, I could eat something. And some people do eat and some people don't eat. So those are all of different things. There are things that you have in your house. If you have sweets in your house, would you eat there? There's the craving that I'm going to drive and I'm going to buy this food. There's your favorite food that you can never resist. There's so many different things. And we always think that is one.
That's so interesting.
One
no
thing.
Wonder it's so hard to change. Yeah.
It is. So you have to start, and those are the things that we teach in our classes. When you joined, it used to be bite-sized. We used to offer through UC Davis. We completely changed the program. Now it's called Life Lab 360. And what we do is, like we said, every month I come in, I teach a class. We just spend the whole year, this past year, talking about metabolic health. Every month, we focus on a different blood biomarker, and we say, this is what it means, and this is the relationship with food or other habits. And at the end, we had a challenge to say, let's do this. And many months, we say, the challenge doesn't change much. The habit is the same. We're always working sometimes on a specific habit for 3 months, but every month, there's more evidence that brings more clarity in people. And now I understand why this is so important to me. And things like that, small distinctions. For example, a lot of people link salt consumption to high blood pressure. Almost nobody links added sugar consumption to high blood pressure. This was a big aha moment to many of our members because they say, oh my gosh, sugar? Yes. And what is the best way for you to see to check whether or not you're having too much sugar? It's uric acid. You have to be checking for uric acid, or your triglycerides. It's a lot more important than glucose level.
Interesting.
And then, so all of these things are important. So sometimes it's like you start on a path, you want to try a specific habit, but many times what I like to teach is that there's a difference between what's his name? He wrote a fabulous book. I know his last name, Desi. It's failing me. The book's called, I think, Why We Do What We Do. Something. I can share it with you if you want to share the link.
I will.
But he says there's a difference between something that we have inside of us, that it has become who we are, and something that someone is telling us to do. And this is the biggest thing for us to start changing. Are we doing this because it's our choice? Yeah. Because for us to be able to maintain intrinsic motivation, we need 3 things. First, we need to believe that it's our choice. We're not doing something because we should. We're doing something because we want to.
Big difference.
Yes. The second part of intrinsic motivation, we need to believe that if we keep at it, we're going to get better.
Yeah, that's
huge. We need
huge.
to at least have this hope to attain mastery. Can you
Okay.
imagine if a child was learning to walk and I say, no matter how long you try or how much effort you put it, you'll never be able to learn. No, the child keeps going because it believes it's going to do
Right.
like their parents or their older brothers
Yeah.
do. Such.
Yeah.
And the third one that Desi says is that it's related to relatedness and is anything that we can do that brings us in relation to others. And that's why like moving into a plant-based diet, it's something that it's part of the inner motivation to a lot of us because it affects more than just our lives. It affects so much more. So this part is something that we have covered. But the most important thing is you need to want to do. And sometimes for you to want to do, you need more information. Why do I want? A lot of people think that the problem with added sugar in the diet is just the calories that are coming from the sugar and how those calories are affecting their weight. But added sugar has so many metabolic effects that most people have no idea, including higher risk of blood pressure. It's not just about weight gain, it's everything else that can happen from that decision of eating added sugar. The same with added oil and added salt, but they have different consequences, but all three have metabolic consequences.
I wish we had time to talk about salt because I have a whole big thing about that. But do you think salt is ever okay for people? Because
yes, it is.
I'm actually when I went off, I'll just say when I stopped salt altogether, I couldn't get up. Like I couldn't, something happened to me. So I had to,
well, there's a ceiling.
And I have low blood pressure, but
yeah, well, there's a ceiling. Ideally, we consume less than 1,500 milligrams of sodium every day, and that's enough for most of us. It's a lot of
Which is
foods
like what,
that we
a half
eat.
a teaspoon, 3/4 of a teaspoon, somewhere in
Three-quarters
there.
of a teaspoon.
Okay.
It's not a lot, but it's enough for our needs. We actually need sodium but we get about 500 milligrams from fruits and vegetables already. Eating whole plant foods, we get enough. So we don't need to add, but if we want to add 1,500 milligrams with the ceiling, but we have absolutely no requirements for added sugar or added fat. Or the sodium,
salt.
We don't need to add. We don't need to add anything, but if you want to add, the limit is 1,500 milligrams.
Okay.
And the same, there's a ceiling for sugar as well. The ceiling is 2 tablespoons or 5% of your calories.
That's quite a bit.
2 tablespoons for women, 3 tablespoons for men. It's
that seems like a lot.
Yeah. And it will have consequences, but it is. But think about it. It's 2 tablespoons, but the average American is eating between 3.5 and 6 tablespoons a day. So it's a lot more than the 2 tablespoons. And the same with sodium. So sodium is 1,500 milligrams, but the average American consumes 3,400 milligrams. So about 2 grams more.
Okay. So who would you, we don't have a lot of time left, and I really would like to focus on just what the benefits are for people who just don't think this sounds like something, like it sounds too extreme. And we didn't really talk about it all, but what all it entails, but basically no animal products. I mean, and whole foods. I mean, that's the basis of it, right? Not processed foods, not crackers and cookies and stuff, but it's whole food. Yeah.
That's very important. So when people want to start, I say, yes, we say the less animal foods you eat, the better. Even if you cannot go 100%. And the more whole plant foods you can eat, the better. Because we don't want people to say, I'm going to be 100% vegan. I'm not going to eat any animal foods, but I'm going to be eating what we call highly processed foods. Because of food will have a very big effect on metabolic health. So we don't want to change one problem for the other. It doesn't help to stop eating animal foods and only, drink the sodas, eat the French
Right.
fries, eat the
Right.
cookies, the vegan cookies,
Right.
vegan cake,
Vegan ice
and
cream, there's vegan
all of this.
everything. Yeah.
Yes, there's vegan everything,
Yeah.
which I
Vegan
like.
cheese.
You're never going to see me boo-hoo those foods because I think this revolution we're seeing in the food industry, I see is very
It's crazy.
positive
Hmm.
because it shows people that it's possible for them to eat things they like without
Yeah.
harming animals, and
Yeah.
many times without harming as much the environment. So I see this very positively. And even
Hmm.
though it's not something that I consume myself, but
Hmm.
if I have guests, I don't mind
Hmm.
having some of those foods. So my guests
Hmm.
can come to my house. I know they have a great time and I'm going to
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
great time. But what we see
Yeah.
is, like I mentioned with my sisters, like within 3 months, it's like complete change in your metabolic health, all your metabolic markers. But it doesn't need to be 3 months. You start feeling and seeing a
Seeing
lot of
changes.
changes very quickly. Within the first week, 2, 3 weeks, you already start less less pain in joints, less inflammation. You feel more energy. If you go 100%, again, it's just like how
More and
how
more.
much you're willing to give it a try. It's
Right.
like anything in life. If you do a little bit, you see a little bit of improvement. If you see a little bit more, you see more improvement.
Right.
So that
Right.
it's a range. You don't have to go 100%, but the more
Yeah.
you do, the more benefits you're going to get.
And the less likely you are to get cardiovascular
Oh, yes.
problems, cancer. I mean, we actually didn't even talk about what all the benefits are to not eating animal products and to eating whole foods. I mean, there's books on that, there's movies on that, there's a lot of information on that.
Yes.
But so it's too much to cover. But it's definitely worth investigating. I know that people don't always want to hear that, just
Yeah.
like you didn't want to hear from the China study. You didn't want
Yeah.
that to be the truth.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be the truth either. My daughter was vegetarian for 10 years until we finally okay. And then we all went vegan. So, it takes a while to get it through your head. But once you do, it's just like when you start seeing other people around you suffering from all these things and
Yeah.
you're not suffering from them because, it's like you with your sister. It's like, it becomes pretty obvious the reasons why.
Yeah, one
So,
of the best books for the science
mhm.
is Michael Greger's first book, actually, first book in this last trilogy, because he had published other books before,
Oh,
How
right.
Not to Die. I love his book. It's very science heavy, but the chapters are short and it
Yeah.
covers the 15 reasons, the 15 top reasons people die. I know we're all going to die, and some people say,
Right.
I'm going to
That's,
die. What if I'm
yeah.
vegan and I go outside and a bus hit me? And then he, at the end of his lectures, he likes to bring the quote by, what's his name? The physician who used to be the chair of the American College
Esselstyn?
of
Dr. Esselstyn? Oh.
Cardiology. No,
Oh, Furman, or I don't know all
no,
their names.
no.
Yeah.
I forgot his name. He said, yeah, I know we're all going to die. I just don't want it to be my fault. And it's cute.
That's interesting.
It has a
Yeah.
degree of
It has a
of
message. Yeah.
truth. But the thing is, so Michael Greger covers in his book How Not to Die the science related, or the relationship or association between consuming animal, sometimes processed food, with those
Hmm.
15 top killers in the US. So it's a very interesting book. It's very big. I tend to listen to my books more than read, and I think that one, I think it's about 24 hours, 18 hours, 18 hours.
Oh. Does he read it? I haven't heard the audio because he's
Yes,
very entertaining,
yes,
just as a human being. So I'm
yes,
sure listening to it would be really enjoyable. He's funny and he
yes.
makes it really palatable in more ways than one. Um, well, I'd love to send people to your website and let them know more about your foundation, which I'll put the links on there. I do want to just say, though, that you give out a lot of information without any expense. I mean, a lot. Like
Yes.
the recipes, and I would encourage people to go try the recipes because they're free. It's PB, and I'll put that
PB
on
Life, yeah. PB
pblife.org.
Life, plant-based life,
And
pblife.org.
there's incredible recipes. I mean, just, whether it's eggs or tofu Benedict or black bean brownies. I made some more, and my favorite on there is the sweet potato lentil soup. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
these are delicious foods. And I think when people think that they're going to suffer they go and just try a few, they will understand uh, that it really can be delicious and is delicious and fun and all those other things. But
Yes,
so,
one thing
but
I was going to, can I say something?
yeah,
When
oh,
you go
yeah.
to the website, pblife.org, there's a button that says join the movement. When you click
Mm-hmm.
there, you're going to be invited to create an account to join the
Okay.
network. It's 100% free. And it's wonderful conversation that we have. It's
Yeah.
it's our home outside of Facebook. We used to have Facebook groups, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
everybody that likes to be on
Right.
Facebook. There are
Right.
privacy things.
Yeah.
But this is now, it's our
That's interesting.
network. It's just us. It's free. We're just now finishing a challenge, a 21-day challenge. As I said, we provide all the information for free. There's a little class that you can take, 21 lessons covering
They're
the
great. They're
essentials, the things
great.
that you need to do. So anybody
Yeah.
can join us. And
Yeah.
we do, the other thing I was going to mention is the work we do is we are mostly volunteers. I am a volunteer
Oh,
myself. I
really?
don't get paid for the work I do for the
Mm.
foundation. And we have many other passionate volunteers that help us run the
Mm.
foundation. We only paid for contractors to do the work to keep the website
Website.
running and
Yeah.
sending emails, all of those things.
Yeah.
But outside of that, any donation or any fee that people pay for one of the paid courses, everything goes to the foundation so we
Really?
can reach more and more people and continue to share our
So,
information.
yeah, because it's really your mission. Your mission isn't financially based. Your mission
No.
is to help more and more
Yes.
people. And honestly, I would just say of all the things that I don't know, I think I went vegan in like 2013 or something like that. So I've read a lot of books and been on a lot of websites, and yours is really the one that, first of all, you're not charging for most things.
Yes.
And then you're also, it's so you can get true answers. There's no hype. There's no,
No.
if you just really want to know about your health, you really want to improve your health or the health of someone, or you just want to try some of it and learn that. It's like going to college. You get you get chemistry, you get
Yeah.
psychological help,
Yes.
and you get a lot of different styles. So I thank you so much for doing this because it's changing so many lives all the time.
I know. And
Yeah.
it makes
And
me super happy. And that's
I
what gets me
bet.
up every day in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I appreciate you so much coming on the program and sharing this, downloading all your knowledge or a piece of your knowledge. It's worth its weight in gold. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And we'll try to spread the word far and wide, even
Okay.
further and wider. All
Thank you so
right, take
much.
care.
It's been a pleasure being here with you. And I
Thank
wish
you.
you and everybody that is listening us, well, much health and happiness in their
Thank
lives.
you. Thank you so much. Take care.